what makes an annuity Medicaid compliant? When people say that, oh, this is a Medicaid compliant annuity, what are the features that make it so?
There's certain features that have to apply to that annuity to be Medicaid compliant, and one of those is that the state has to have the right of first recovery against any death benefit.
Information presented on this program is believed to be factual and up to date, but we do not guarantee its accuracy, and it should not be regarded as complete analysis of the subjects discussed. Discussions and answers to questions do not involve the rendering of personalized investment advice, but are limited to the dissemination of general information. A professional advisor should be consulted before implementing any of the options presented. Encompass More Asset Management LLC is a registered investment advisor with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission and only transacts business in states where it is properly registered or is excluded or exempted from registration requirements.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Ducharme Wealth Management Podcast, where we aim to help educate and empower people to have better and more meaningful engagements with the professionals that they need to work with that could have an impact on their financial lives. Today, we have our guest on, Jim Alder with the Alder Law Group up in the Salt Lake City, Utah area. He's been doing estate planning for over 2 decades and has a particular niche where he does help people with Medicaid planning and dealing with that potential spend down period as people look to potentially need those state resources. So we have an interesting conversation. I know almost no one listening is going to be the person in their late 70s, early 80s looking to potentially do Medicaid planning. However, I've looked at the demographics of this podcast and know that a lot of you likely have parents in this age demographic. And so as you listen, think about your parents, your grandparents who are around you might need to start addressing this issue because it is a touchy subject and it's super important for people that do want to leave a legacy. So with that, I hope you enjoy the episode. How long have you been doing Medicaid planning?
I've been doing estate planning, focusing exclusively on estate planning since, for about 20 years now, 19 years. On my own, out on my own since 2008.
Okay. Rough time for people to start getting people to pay for estate planning.
2008? Yeah. Yeah, that was a rough couple of years.
Yeah. I think there was a lot of people in that year that all of a sudden looked at it and went, maybe we won't be having that estate tax issue after all.
Yeah. It was not a good time to buy somebody's practice, to fork out $250,000.
Did you buy the practice or?
Yeah, I bought the practice of a retiring attorney and took it over.
Okay. Well, in hindsight, it probably turned out okay for you.
It's worked out. But then, that was just to complete that purchase, April 1st, and then 6 months later, have the world go to hell in a handbasket. It's like, oops.
Yeah. Beginning of 2008 purchase versus end of 2008 purchase is 2 very different things.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
yeah, it was tough. Nobody wanted to do estate planning for at least a year and a half. It was pretty tough finding clients.
Yeah. Where are you at? You're up in Salt Lake, right?
Right. Yeah. We have offices in Bountiful and Sugar House. Sugar House has been traditionally where the practice has been located.
Okay. And so are you the sole attorney, or are you, you have a team of paralegals and
well, it's me and my wife. My wife is my office manager. And we did have some attorneys with us in years past, and the last one retired just as COVID took off, and we were kicked out of our previous location when Mill Creek took that building that we were in at the time. And she had some health problems, and her husband had a major heart attack just shortly before that, so she decided to retire. So since then, it's just been me.
Okay. Have you, maybe an interesting question I have for you is, in the advisory world, in the last several years in particular, you've seen more advisors go independent and have just a small solo practice, kind of like you have, but on the advisory side where it's, they've got a good core base of clients. They keep, low overhead. They try to stay operationally efficient, and they kind of make these really good practices that, especially when they serve a niche market, or a niche demographic. And I think that's sort of come because of the ability with Zoom calls, and, no one thinks it's weird if you run a practice out of your house anymore and you're working remote, or
that's where I am.
You know
right
what
now.
I mean? It's like, yeah. And so I'm wondering if on the law firm side, if that's the case, particularly in estate planning, because I feel like I'm hearing that sort of more and more, where, if you do big corporate law, you need kind of a team of attorneys, right? Or if you're going to do, criminal defense at a, major level, or litigation stuff, right? It's like, but if you're just going to draft estate plans, it doesn't require a team of paralegals to research things for you, and it doesn't require a team of attorneys to get ready for court and this sort of thing. So it's it just seems more feasible to say, hey, I'm just going to kind of do my own thing, right?
It is. Yeah, definitely. I try to stay away from litigation because first of all, out of law school, I worked in a couple of roles where I never saw the inside of a courtroom, and if I was supposed to have learned anything about civil procedure, I forgot about it. Yeah. But yeah, I'm not set up to do all of that legal research, drafting and such, where you have paralegals do a lot of that legwork. Yeah. So I turn down those cases. If somebody comes to me with complex trust litigation, I'll refer that out. Okay. If it's something that we can get resolved at mediation, because, with the current systems, the courts, with all probate code cases, which include trust and guardianship cases, if there's a dispute, then the court refers those cases initially to mediation. And only then, if you can't get things worked out in mediation, do you go to your regularly assigned judge for evidentiary hearings. So, if it's a case we can get resolved there, I'll take those. I did a lot of mediation, alternative dispute resolution, negotiation work in law school. So, I'm happy to take those cases, but if it gets into evidence, evidentiary hearings, all the civil procedure and discovery and stuff, then I'll refer the case out.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a friend on here in St. George that does estate litigation, and it's a different lift. So, okay. Jim, you've been doing estate planning for 20 years, and now how long have you been doing Medicaid planning?
Well, since I bought that practice,
okay.
Initially I was just focused on revocable living trust planning. Okay. But when I bought that practice, that's when I took over started into the Medicaid planning, which that attorney had done some, doing more of it than the prior attorney did.
Okay.
Kind of made that a little bit of a specialty. To put myself through my undergrad at Utah State, I drove the special needs bus, the short bus, and which was basically the respite program for the Cache County school districts.
Okay.
And, so I've got a connection there, working with those kids and such. And I've served on the board of directors for like Camp Costopolis here in Salt Lake Valley and such, working with special needs, which is Medicaid, based programs and such. So doing more of that. I also have been on the board of directors for the Utah Alzheimer's Association, the president of the board, appointed to the state Alzheimer's task force by Governor Herbert back in the day. And so, doing that Medicaid work is something that I've kind of specialized in as part of my estate planning practice that some attorneys don't get into because it's a little more complex and all.
I'd say most attorneys, in my experience, most estate planning attorneys won't do it. They won't touch it. It's more complex. And then you're oftentimes dealing with a subset of people that don't have a lot of money to pay you either.
Yeah,
right?
Sometimes.
It's not always that, but I think that's maybe the perception. And then the other thing that I hear is almost like a moral objection from attorneys. Sometimes they'll say, I don't do Medicaid planning because I feel that, and I'm summarizing like the essence of what a lot of people multiple attorneys have said is the essence is people should not plan for Medicaid, if they have to use it, they should just, pay their assets in, like the code says, and that's the price you pay, right? They kind of make it akin to, everyone pays their fair share on taxes. If you owe taxes, just pay it, and so they simulate it somewhat in their mind, I think, maybe more to like tax evasion than tax avoidance. I think it really falls in the bucket of tax avoidance. And I think that because I've had some experiences where I've dealt with people with family members that have had to go through it, or people who have special needs children who are on Medicaid, right? It's just, there's more complexity of thought, I think, to it personally.
Sure.
Have you come across that at all, where people have that kind of attitude?
Yeah. I've heard those objections and concerns before, but the thing is Congress specifically had the opportunity to lock this down and say, absolutely not. You cannot avoid spend down before you qualify, but they chose not to. They chose not to and left, the Medicaid with the 5-year look back rule. So if you're able to plan far enough in advance to make this plan work, you're specifically allowed to. Congress allowed that, knowingly allowed that to happen.
Yeah. And I think like any other tax code they leave open or anything like that, if they leave it open, it's fair use.
Yes.
Right?
The arguments were made, that no one should be able to do any sort of planning and avoid the spend down, but they specifically left it at that 5-year look back period. So you can do this planning. They could have done it otherwise, but they chose not to.
So help me understand what the 5-year look back is.
Yeah. So when you make a Medicaid application for, your nursing home costs, Medicaid has the ability, the right to demand to see your financial records for the previous 5 years. And in reviewing those, what they're looking for is to see if you have transferred assets away, gifted assets away, and you did not receive equivalent value in return. So, if I take $10,000 and go buy, some big asset, a really fancy TV or something, that's not a problem because I got a $10,000 TV. But if I gift $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 to one of my kids, I transfer my home to my kids, so I'm not on the title anymore, within that 5-year period, then I'm penalized. I won't get Medicaid benefits for the time that transfer would have paid for. They have what they call their penalty divisor, that they divide that number by. So if it's say $50,000, the penalty divisor is around $5,000 even. So they divide it by that number, and that works out to about 10 months where I don't get Medicaid benefits. Okay, because that $50,000 would have paid for 10 months in nursing home care, according to their calculations. So what happens? The money's gone, right? But
yeah,
I don't have any benefits. The object of this rule is to try and force that money to be returned and consumed, spent down. And once that has been done, then I get Medicaid benefits. Okay. So yeah, that's the look back, that 5-year window. So when we're doing this type of planning, we try to time it so that the client can somehow get through that 5-year period before the need arises for the Medicaid application. And we try to look at what assets they have, available to them. We can tap into the home value with a reverse mortgage inside the Medicaid trust if we needed to self-pay through the 5-year period. But do they qualify for VA benefits like the aid and attendance benefit that's available to veterans of a wartime period to help pay for unreimbursed medical expenses to get them through that 5 years? And once that 5-year period is closed, then the family can make the Medicaid application, and whatever is left in the trust is protected against Medicaid spend down and recovery.
Okay, you lost me. I'm gonna have to back it up.
Yeah. So we're usually doing this type of planning when a client is at a point in their life when they're ready for the kids to assist right? I'm not ever usually doing a Medicaid Asset Protection Trust for somebody in their 50s unless they're really already struggling with early onset dementia or something. But we're typically doing this type of planning when somebody's in their 70s, late 70s, 80s. Don't rarely do it when they're in their 90s because we don't expect them to make it through that look back period that late in life. But it's usually in that period where people are ready to start accepting assistance because this Medicaid trust, the client can't be the trustee of that trust. It has to be somebody else.
Okay.
So they've got to be able to turn over control. If it's the house that's in the trust, if it's some cash, they've got to turn that control over those assets to somebody else.
And then they have to wait 5 years.
Yeah. So we make the transfers into that trust. Then we've got to get through that 5-year period. And somehow if they need nursing home care, 3 years into that 5-year period, then we've got to figure out how to self-pay for the nursing home care until the 5 years has passed.
Right.
Before the Medicaid application is made. So is that whatever cash assets they have left? Is it cash that's been put into the Medicaid trust? Is it tapping into the home value with a reverse mortgage to be able to self-pay? Okay. Once the 5-year period has passed from the date of the transfer, then the family can make the Medicaid application and Medicaid will start picking up the costs.
Is home equity protected from Medicaid?
Yes, if we've transferred it into that trust and gotten through that look back period, yes, it is. And that's most often, the asset that people are trying to protect is the home equity.
So if you've transferred that asset into a irrevocable trust, you no longer own nor control that. Can you
the trust owns it. You've got one of the kids typically as that trustee, so they're in charge, they're in control.
Right. But when you say use a reverse mortgage to access the equity in the home, are you going to be able to qualify for an FHA reverse mortgage at that point still?
Yeah, we've got a company here in Utah. There was one that we're trying to make use of out of New York, and I heard about him in a continuing legal education class, and I was waiting for about 4 years for these guys to get licensed here in Utah because this is such an invaluable tool to help us with clients in these scenarios.
Right.
And, they just never would. And I'd have clients that needed this and I'd reach out to them and, we're not, we can't do it yet. And, but we just recently did find somebody here in Bountiful, in fact, that can do it inside that irrevocable trust for us. So, we've got that arrow in the quiver that they can do the reverse mortgage inside that irrevocable trust. And if we need to tap into the home equity to self-pay.
And it was and to be clear, it was still an FHA reverse mortgage.
I believe it is.
Okay.
I believe it is from what I understand. But yeah, they're able to do it.
Okay.
I think the difficulty for most lending companies is that irrevocable trust.
Yep. Well, that's what I thought the concern would be.
No problems with a revocable living trust at all. And federal law, allows you to transfer your property into a revocable living trust, and the lender can't take any action. But irrevocable trusts give them, a little heartburn.
Yeah, and for Medicaid planning, it has to be irrevocable, right? You can't have control, and that's what you're doing there. Okay,
has to be irrevocable, exactly. And the grantor, the client, can't be the lifetime beneficiary of that trust either, because if they are, then Medicaid can force the trust assets to be used for their benefit. So it's set up so typically one of the kids is the trustee, and one or more of the kids are the lifetime beneficiaries of the trust. So it's technically been gifted to the kids in the form of this trust.
Okay.
But they know to use it for mom or dad's benefit until they pass away. Okay. It's set up as a grantor trust so that the client, the grantor, is still responsible for any taxes. And by doing that, the property, the assets get a full step up in basis when mom or dad dies. The kids inherit everything free of any capital gains tax, right? But they just hold it in that trust. They use it for mom or dad's benefit. And we usually, if there is a home where the mom or dad is still living in the trust, we build in a life estate. They have a right to reside in the property still, so they can't be kicked out. but they aren't technically the lifetime beneficiaries of the trust anymore. It's an incomplete gift to the kids.
Okay. That makes sense. So aside from just having a qualified trust set up 5 years in advance with assets properly transferred into it and having a plan around kind of who's going to do what here to make sure that, mom or dad is still taken care of financially. What are kind of the other things that people need to be aware of when they're doing Medicare planning or Medicaid planning?
Medicaid planning. Yeah. Yeah. That big one is that 5-year look back window, right? That's the number one thing that people have to really be aware of, that you've got to do this in advance. Crisis planning for Medicaid is, we have very limited options as to what we can do.
Okay.
When somebody comes to us at the last minute and says, we've got to do some Medicaid planning. We want to protect the value of the home, but there's no cash to work with, right? So, our only resort there might be to use the home equity and try to tap into that. But, hopefully there's enough equity available.
Mm-hmm.
But, doing it in five years in advance is the big critical key issue to making the plan work. So, people need to be aware of that. If you want to do this, you've got to do it in advance. You don't want to leave it till the last second. We always, when we're doing this type of planning, in addition to creating that Medicaid trust for whatever assets we're trying to protect, we'll look at the other assets too, and we might be creating a revocable living trust for whatever assets they don't put into the Medicaid trust.
Because
and powers of attorney and healthcare directives and
whatever they don't put into the irrevocable trust, they can put in a revocable trust and do the spend down over the 5 years, correct?
Yeah. Whatever's left outside the Medicaid trust, they have to understand that that's going to be subject to Medicaid spend down, right?
Right. Which realistically just means you can't gift that money away. You have to use it, right? So,
it can be used on all sorts of things as long as value is received for whatever money is spent. You can
go on vacation.
Home. You can, do home improvement projects. You can go buy new assets, pay medical expenses, whatever it is, as long as value is received. It's just if you gift it away, you try to give it to the kids, you try to give it to somebody else, that's where you get, nailed. You get in trouble. You get penalized.
Yeah. Okay. So you're really looking and saying, what do I want to pass on as my legacy here, as far as, from a monetary standpoint?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to have to do that transfer now instead of after I pass, because in the interim, I'm going to need some kind of care,
right?
Some kind of Medicaid care or care that's beyond my ability to just self-pay. And so I'm going to transfer those assets that I want to leave behind for people. I'm going to do it now through this Medicaid designed grantor or irrevocable trust. And I'll keep what I need for the next 5 years to kind of get across the finish line. And
oftentimes we're looking at the client's complete financial picture, and maybe they've got $1 million in total value between their cash, assets, and the home, and they'll oftentimes be saying, I'd like a little money to play with still. So we'll figure out what it is that they want to keep out and have to play with and do their own thing with and have control over, versus what do they want to try and protect. What is it they want to make sure gets passed down to the kids, and, divide those between the revocable trust, the irrevocable trust. And sometimes when the money doesn't justify using a revocable living trust as well, we may just help them set up their accounts with beneficiary designations and get powers of attorney in place that help manage those if they're incapacitated. What is it they want to try and do? What's the best vehicle to manage that, accomplish those goals?
Okay. And so to be clear, what you're saying when you're saying you want to design these plans, you're saying, hey, there's a chance that although mom or dad keeps back kind of 5 years worth of funds or assets, there's a chance that all of a sudden in year money goes quick, and in year 4 they need they don't need Medicaid later, they need Medicaid now. There has to be some kind of understanding but it can't be a legal obligation for the kids to step in and maybe help out mom and dad financially at that point, right? With these assets that they've now sort of inherited early, if you will.
Right. True. Yeah. That trust, that Medicaid trust, they can't be bound to use it. If it says that in the document somewhere, then Medicaid could say, no, that's for your benefit. Then we can compel its use before you qualify for benefits, right?
Yeah.
So it is kind of a honor system, for as far as the kids are concerned.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there is a benefit to them, okay, to do this, because by using the trust, we're going to avoid those capital gains tax issues, right?
Yep.
If this is done right.
Yes.
If mom or dad gift that property to the kids 5 years before they enter the nursing home outright, they just quit claim it over to them. Well, they've quit claimed their basis in the property to them too.
Yeah.
So when the kids decide they want to sell it after mom or dad dies, now they're going to have capital gains to deal with.
Yep.
So they have an incentive to make this work, right? Because if they do it right, they're going to save probably 23.5%, or that's your federal taxes, 23.8 with your surcharge. So doing it right, it's got there's a reason you want it.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. So let's pivot really quick to the people that haven't planned ahead. They haven't thought of this ahead of time. Or I think sometimes people think about it, but they think, not me, not my parents. I'm in great health. I'll live till I'm 100. And, unfortunately, I think when you at least from what I feel I've really observed is everyone's okay and doing great in life just until they're not, and it's kind of that slowly and then suddenly kind of thing. And then all of a sudden you're within a 5-year window, right? And there's assets. Now, if somebody has, if they have an estate that they have a net worth, a couple $1 million, there's no need for Medicaid planning or looking at this 5-year look back or any of that, because it's going to self-pay, right?
Most likely.
Likely.
For a couple $1 million in value, there might not be any benefit to doing this plan.
Yeah. So I think, people certainly fall into that camp. But where I see the most questions around Medicaid planning is, hey, we own a home. I have, $100 or maybe $200,000 in retirement savings or something. We primarily make it by on Social Security, and I, I'm going to have to probably go into Medicaid onto Medicaid, the next year or two. Things are really deteriorating quick. And so now they're sort of scrambling, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What does that situation really look like for people from a planning standpoint? What is available to them, or what can they do to help just navigate the spend down?
Yeah, so we look at everything that's available to them. Always ask the question: did you or your spouse serve in the a wartime period and in the armed forces? That's what qualifies them for the aid and attendance benefit.
Okay,
that's available.
Cover that really quick. What does that benefit typically cover?
Okay, so it's intended to assist your veterans of a wartime period. Mm-hmm. So you've got to be a veteran of World War II, the Korean conflict. Vietnam's a little weird because the first couple of years you had to be in country to qualify, but then after 66 or so, you could be anywhere in the world during the Vietnam War period and qualify for it. Mm-hmm. The Gulf Wars, okay. As long as you are a veteran of one of those wartime periods, you qualify for this benefit, this additional benefit. It's kind of the best kept secret of VA benefits out there. Not many people realize it's available to them. But its express purpose is to assist with unreimbursed medical expenses. So a spouse of a vet can also qualify at a little lower rate. If the spouse of the vet has passed, prior to the surviving spouse there, They can also get some benefit to them, but the veteran itself gets a higher rate. But yeah, it's used to help with, can be used to help with in-home healthcare purposes, prescriptions costs that aren't covered, supplies, assisted living, or even nursing home care. Okay. Any unreimbursed medical expense. So there's some rules about qualifying for it. They have a look back period too now, as of about 5 years ago. Prior to that, you could make transfers and qualify for that that aid and attendance benefit and not be penalized. But as of about 4 or 5 years ago, they adopted a 3-year look back window. Okay. So you have to do some planning in advance to qualify for this as well. But it can be really handy in helping somebody get through that 5-year period, if it's available, and they need the nursing home care prior to the completion of that 5-year look back window. So we look for that. Is that available to us? Do they have long-term care insurance? That can be a major godsend, of course.
Sure.
To help do that. But what are the assets available to them? We can't do much with retirement plans. We can't transfer those into a trust, of course. So, unless you want to cash it out and lose the tax advantage growth and pay the taxes, we can't put that money, those funds, into a trust. So what do we do with those? If they have those available, we may choose to spend those down to get them through the 5-year look back window. Other things that we can do with retirement plans is annuitize them, purchase a Medicaid-compliant annuity to avoid their spend down.
What makes an annuity Medicaid compliant? When people say that, oh, this is a Medicaid compliant annuity, what are the features that make it so?
There's certain features that have to apply to that annuity to be Medicaid compliant, and one of those is that the state has to have the right of first recovery against any death benefit. All right, so if you're going to purchase this annuity inside your IRA, it has to allow the state to come back and claw back anything that's been paid, out of Medicaid for your benefit first, before your kids get some death benefit from that annuity. It has to be actuarially sound. Can't have balloon payments. There's some other features that make it Medicaid compliant. But that big one is the state clawback. Okay. But yeah, we can do that to convert it to an income stream. So it's no longer a countable asset that has to be forced or can be forced to be spent down. It's an income stream. Now, it counts into what income they have, and any income gets applied to the nursing home bill before Medicaid picks up the difference. Okay, so if they've got Social Security of a couple thousand, they've got this income stream coming off of the IRA, the Medicaid compliant annuity, they've got other pension benefits coming in. That's all applied to the nursing home bill first, and then Medicaid picks up whatever balance is left over. So we look at all these different things and see, what's going to work best, what's going to help them get qualified. Sometimes if there's nothing that we can do to get them qualified other than spend down, we help structure a plan to spend down and get them qualified as quick as possible. Certain assets are countable assets, okay, meaning these are things that they force to be spent down. Certain assets are non-countable assets, okay? So the home, for instance, when you're applying for Medicaid, the home is not a countable asset. It's an exempt asset.
Okay.
So they don't count its value and what they say has to be spent down, and they don't force you to sell your home if you can demonstrate an intent to return home. But if you're single and you're applying for benefits, they'll put a lien on that property for whatever they have spent on your care. If you're married and you have a spouse that's still at home, we call them the community spouse because they're still living in the community, then Utah Medicaid does not put a lien on the home and try to recover against the home after the nursing home spouse has passed away. Okay, but it's an exempt asset. There are other exempt assets. Okay. One vehicle is an exempt asset. So between the spouses, they can have one vehicle. Maybe they have an old beater car. You've got $75,000 you've got to spend down. Well, hey, go buy a new Cadillac. or a Mercedes or a really nice car. And the family can use that to transport you to your doctor's appointments and such, but it's an exempt asset. Okay. So maybe it loses a little value because it's been driven off the parking lot of the dealer, but there's still some value that when they pass away, especially where it hasn't been driven much, that, hey, that vehicle can be sold and family can, inherit whatever's left of that value.
Maybe you want to buy a really nice used Toyota Land Cruiser in that event.
we joke about the Medicaid Cadillac. I mean, it's a common term. Having the Medicaid Cadillac. I like Mercedes, more than Cadillacs myself, but
I'd go for the Toyota and save yourself some of that depreciation cost. Maybe.
Something like that. But get a nice new car.
Sure. Okay.
Replace the beater car. Get a really nice car, and spend down in that fashion. But that's an exempt asset. Prepaid funeral plans are exempt assets too. So if they don't have their funeral plans in place, well, go out and get those purchased. Get everything paid, opening of the grave, closing of the grave, your casket, everything, get it prepaid, because the Medicaid can't force you to spend those or cough that up. So get some of these things out of the way, maybe use the money remaining money to upgrade the house for the community spouse. Do you need any special equipment? Do you need a wheelchair? Do you need anything? Get those types of things out of the way. Personal effects are exempt too. Hey, if you want to buy a nice big 80-inch big screen TV to be in your nursing home room, hey, go ahead and spend that money to buy personal effects even. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll look at everything that's out there and help them come up with a plan. If all we can do is spend down, then there's nothing else to do to try and, get them qualified as soon as possible and put the money into assets where we can hopefully recoup something, get the things in place that are exempt assets, get some of the other issues out of the way so the kids don't have to worry about stuff like the funeral plans and all.
Yeah, that's all pretty reasonable stuff. I have this just goofy question that popped into my head. Where do they draw the line between personal effects and collectibles?
It's a good question. Because I've heard of somebody that had a massive firearms collection, and they forced him to spend it down. Okay, because there was such significant value there. You got $100,000 in firearms. Yeah, they're going to probably say, we're not going to say that's personal.
Personal protection and
you've got a collection. This is a countable asset.
Okay.
So yeah, things like that might be. Collectible. You're sitting on a Van Gogh in the living room. They're probably going to say that's got to be consumed. Yeah, that may have to be spent down because it's worth $1 million or so.
So they sort of have the discretion to determine what is an asset and what is a personal effect. So
yeah,
they'll look at a TV and say,
if there's real significant value there, it's likely they may say that's got to be spent down.
Okay. Yeah. So it's a great clarification because I was about to give the world's just best commercial for why people needed Rolexes at late stages in life.
Yeah, might not work. It might not escape their investigation into you or whatever. Yeah.
Great clarification points. Okay. What are some good questions that people could be asking themselves? I in particular think like this episode, there's probably no one listening to this episode that's like, oh, I'm right on the edge of needing to do that myself. But there's probably a pretty fair chance that someone listening to this episode is like, that's my parents.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
That's my parents. I need to talk to my parents about this. What are the questions that people could kind of be asking themselves to say like, ooh, is this really something we should be talking more about? How does somebody identify that their parents may have that need?
Well, age, first of all. Okay. Where are their parents at? It may not be just age. What's their health like? Again, if they're in their 50s or 60s and their cognition, their mental capacity is declining, you better get started. You better get thinking about this. But yeah, if your parents are in their 70s, especially 75 or up, yeah, you need to start having these conversations. You need to start exploring this, because again, the timing can be critical, and you don't want to wait till the last second to start asking these questions. So maybe trying to bring up that subject, and some parents are really close to the vest and they don't want to talk about things sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, that usually tends to be a problem. That creates a lot of problems in dealing with the estate when the parents won't talk about stuff. We have a far better, easier time in managing estates, getting things done and working right if the parents are willing to talk. But some don't like to. They don't want to, discuss their finances, their affairs, and that usually ends up being a stumbling block, causing an issue. So finding some way to bring this up with them. Maybe that's saying, I heard about this Medicaid trust. Have you ever heard about it? What it does? Or you think you might be? Have you ever wanted to try and preserve the value of your home or some of your assets to be inherited rather than consumed on nursing home care costs? I've heard that you got to do this in advance. You need to do this before you have to go into the nursing home. So you want to take a look at this.
Yeah.
5 years in advance. Keep that 5-year window in your mind. But having these conversations can be difficult, but they're really valuable conversations to have, critical conversations if you want to make the plan work.
Yeah. I keep thinking about that 5-year plan and people identifying their parents, like, hey, if your parents are starting to, lose some cognitive function or slowing down. And what we're not talking about is, hey, when your parents look like Joe Biden, it's time to start. That means they're slowing down. It's like, no, you're 5 years too late.
Yeah. If you're walking with that stiff gait already.
Yeah. You're too late. We're saying, or you're saying at least, it's like, hey, when you start noticing that maybe, just every once in a while your parents it takes them longer to recall a memory or put a thought together or to respond to a question, or they just seem like they're not doing as many activities, or they're just, like you have to be really more sensitive to that. That is the slowing down that, as you observe, that needs the planning needs to start. Right.
Yeah.
Because maybe it's 7 years before they go on Medicaid, and maybe it's 8 years before they go on Medicaid.
Right.
But you're trying to avoid it where, hey, this is going to be next year. They're going to be on Medicaid,
right.
And it's too late. Right. You gotta, and gosh, how many times when somebody starts this conversation, are they going to start this conversation? And by the time it goes from, I started the conversation to, we have all the documents signed at the attorney's office and trust funded, is a year, 2 years, 3 years, because it just sometimes can take that long for people to emotionally come to terms with, okay, this is something I need to do, and I'll actually take the time to deal with it and take it serious and stuff.
That happens. Absolutely. It happens that people put it off, and I know it should get to it and don't get it done sometimes.
It's
the incapacity can come on quick.
Yeah.
Sometimes, your Alzheimer's or other dementias can be really slowly progressing, but they can move quite quickly too. I was just talking with somebody the other day where mother was doing quite well just a few months ago, and all of a sudden she's really in a tailspin.
Yeah.
And, they were visiting with her just the other night, and the next morning their sister was there with mom, and mom had no idea that the person I was talking to had been there the night before.
Yeah.
This was just within the matter of months that she's gone from being in pretty good shape, other than having some general health issues.
Yeah.
To now her cognition is dropping off the cliff.
Yeah.
So you just never know.
Slowly, then suddenly, I think is the phrase. So, well, I certainly appreciate you taking the time to hop on and talk a little bit of Medicaid planning. I know it has got to be one of the most a taboo and boring things to talk about, right? It's like,
it's pretty sexy stuff.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like if you're not a financial planner, right, and you're not the person staring down the barrel of having to sign over all your assets to the state, it's like, gee, I could listen to some guys talk about Medicaid planning, or I could watch some paint dry. I'll have to really, make a conscious decision on which one,
Yeah.
But I think it's so important to have the conversation and to communicate with your family. I'm always talking to people about the generational wealth opportunities. And for so many people, that's important. But for so many people, they think it just magically is going to happen. A lot of that generational transfer happens in your lifetime through your transferring of your personal beliefs, your financial assets, your tangible assets, whatever it may be, right? There's more to legacy planning than just, I had money in a savings account when I died, or I had a life insurance policy when I died, right? There's more to it.
Absolutely.
And these conversations help, I think, facilitate that, especially like sometimes they're quite tough, and a lot of people don't have an unlimited number of resources, but they still want to leave something meaningfully behind, right?
Absolutely. And whatever it is that they've worked hard to cobble together, they want to see their kids benefit from it. And that's what we're trying to do here.
Well, what I try to do with this podcast always is I try to help people get some more information, some education, and kind of prep them to have these conversations with whatever professional they need to go have them with, right? So in your case, Medicaid. And my hope is that now somebody that is able to recognize a situation and say, gosh, I maybe need that help. And what are some questions I should be asking? And how can I tell if somebody really is knowing what they're doing when it comes to Medicaid planning, so that I'm not just, sold a bill of goods by somebody that doesn't know what they're doing. And just try to help educate people on how to better engage with the financial professionals or the professionals around them that are going to impact their financial lives. And just go have better, more meaningful engagements with those people to have a better chance at a more successful outcome. And
absolutely,
I think Medicaid planning is an area of opportunity for people to have a lot of opportunity to learn about it. Right? They don't know; it's not a commonly talked about thing. So,
I have a lot of people that say, "Why haven't I heard about this before?"
Yeah.
As we bring this up, it isn't well known, and I'm trying to get that word out there. But if you're listening to this and hearing this, talk to your parents about it, because it's likely they've never heard about it.
Yeah,
it really is.
Hey, Jim, if somebody identifies that their parents are ready for this conversation, or they maybe even a consultation with you before they approach their parents, like, hey, do you think my parents are ready for this conversation? Should I be trying to bring them into you? Or whatever that looks like. What's the best way to get a hold of you? Where can people find you for your help and guidance?
Well, certainly. Our website is utahtrustattorneys.com, and that's attorneys, EYS. Sometimes people try to spell that IES. It's EYS.com. Okay. Through the website, our phone number is 801-463-2600. They just give us a shout. We can arrange, Zoom conference call, phone call, in-person meeting to discuss options and help them understand what options are out there, what's available, what can we do, and how you can talk to your parents about these types of things, what concepts to share with them so that they understand.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, and I hope somebody is able to have a positive impact on lives from us taking the time today.
Absolutely. Happy to do so.
Okay. We'll see you out there, Jim.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Yeah. Hey, appreciate, we'll cut it off there, but just kind of offline here. I do appreciate you taking the time, Jim. I really do. So you're actually truthfully the only person I know in Utah that does Medicaid planning. So
yeah, there's a few of us. There's not a ton.
I think there was someone my associate advisor got referred to recently, and I can't remember who it was. Hell, it could have been you. I don't know. But anyways, yeah, I think we actually probably work in a demographic that probably has more need for that than we, push on. So, yeah, that being said, even today, I had some names pop into my head that I probably should call them and say, hey, your parents. You probably should be talking about this with your parents. So it's good to know the resources and have access to that. So I sent you over my contact card. I'd really love it if you sent me an email.
Sure.
Just Brandon@DucharmeWealth.com. Fire me off an email. So I just, save your contact.
Okay.
You ever make it down here to St. George?
Oh, occasionally. Yeah, we get through that area once in a while.
Next time you're down this way, holler. I'd love to grab some lunch with you or play a round of golf or something.
Anything that involves firearms?
I am a veteran.
No. Who is it that we've done the gun trust for?
What's that?
Who is it that we've done the gun trust for down there?
The gun trust?
Yeah, we did a gun trust for, is it somebody that's related to you?
To me? No.
Yeah. Down there in St. George by the same name?
I am the only Ducharme in St. George.
Okay, maybe it wasn't then.
I have a gun trust personally.
You do? Okay.
It was done by an attorney out of I think Pleasant Grove. I used to work before I joined the Army. I actually worked at Gunny's in Orem.
At Gunny's? Okay.
Yeah. And so they had an attorney there that they would send people to. And I can't remember her name to save my life. First trust I ever had though. It was an NFA trust.
Nice. You got your priorities straight.
Yeah. Then my Uncle Mike lives up in Salt Lake. He's out in the Riverton area, but I am fairly confident he doesn't have an NFA trust.
Okay. I probably do more of that work than anybody in the state.
Really?
Yeah.
There's who's the guy that wrote the dang book on, he wrote the book called Utah Gun Law.
Mitch Vilas?
Yeah, Mitch Vilas. Yeah, Vilas. I had to hire him once, dude. Yeah, that's a funny backstory.
Yeah, I know Mitch well. He lives in Centerville here. I'm in Bountiful.
Okay. Yeah. Odd dude. That is an attorney. That's an attorney's attorney right there. That guy. We had gotten some tickets for, this is back in 2015 or something. We got some topics for, we were hunting jackrabbits out by 5 Mile Pass out in Tooele, or towards Tooele. Yeah. And I don't know, someone said that we were shooting at them, which was total BS. The guy was on the other side of a ridge. And so some sheriff came out, found us out in the desert, and gave us tickets for shooting in a non-shooting zone and not wearing seatbelts and discharging a firearm from a vehicle. And it's dude, you didn't see any of this. You saw us riding around in a Jeep with guns, which is not illegal. And we all had concealed weapons permits, so we could have loaded long guns in the vehicle. And anyway, so it's just, yeah, we had Mitch take care of it for us.
Nice.
But it was, I was dude, wow, way to try to really throw the book at us.
Yeah, I refer a lot of clients if they have a criminal type of an issue.
Okay.
He's one of the names that I give out all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't had to revisit that NFA trust at all. I just have picked up a couple of things when I worked at Gunny's back in the day and just have them. But yeah, I'll shoot. Yeah. If you want to come, have you ever done the Tuesday night steel down here?
The what?
Tuesday night steel shoot?
No.
Oh man. All right. You got to come. So they do it every Tuesday afternoon. So man, spring and fall is just a beautiful time to do it. They start at 3:00. And so you get out there, October, November, or, late February, March, April, and you get out there at 3:00, beautiful weather. And they have, 4 different bays set up at the Washington County range. And, it's kind of akin to an ASPCA practice night. And okay. So they have 4 bays set up with steel targets and lanes, and, they'll have a range master follow you around and you time your shoots, man. It gives you all the instructions on how to shoot it. So it's like shooting competition, but it's, practice basically.
Nice.
And there's 4 different bays. You take 4 different runs. your first time you go, they let you do it for free, but otherwise it's $10. And so you need like 200 rounds of, ammo, a couple mags and a holster. And, man, like if I'm going to go shoot 200 rounds somewhere, but I don't have to set up any steel and I don't have to pick up any crap later or haul anything off the range, that's worth $10 all day.
Sure.
Long.
You bet.
So
absolutely. Sounds fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Next time you're down this way, let me know. And if there's ever anything I can do for you, happy to come up to Salt Lake. I pop up there every once in a while to do different, like seminars or trainings for different, organizations. So,
well, excellent. Yeah. I'm happy, love to stop by and visit with you if I'm down through there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Might be the next time that I know we might be going through is probably going to be in February.
Okay. I'll be here.
Yeah. I'll probably be heading down to Phoenix for a dog show is what we're anticipating.
Are you guys breeders or?
Yeah. Yeah. We breed Bernese Mountain Dogs.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of people that do that.
There's surprisingly, it's gaining a lot of popularity where they used to be really rare. There's
how long have you been doing that?
We've had Bernese Mountain Dogs for about 15 years, but we've really gotten into breeding the last 3 or 4.
Okay.
And we picked up a puppy out of Switzerland last year.
Okay.
To do the full confirmation showing, the whole bit.
I know somebody that they have always had and bred Burmese Mountain Dogs, but this is somebody that was like, I would have thought maybe you knew him if you'd been doing this in the early 2000s or.
Oh yeah, we wouldn't have known him then.
Yeah. So this is someone out
in
Wisconsin.
There's a show down there that we'll probably be going to.
Okay.
That's what I understand. We're hoping to get that puppy to his championship status next weekend in Boise.
All right. Well, good luck with that.
Yeah.
What's your dog's name?
Jaeger.
Okay. Like with a Y?
With J with the A umlaut, Ager.
Yeah.
Like you see in Jägermeister.
Yeah, I was just going to say like the Meister himself.
Right. Jaeger. Yeah. So. He's from Switzerland. He's a Swiss import, and he's 21 months now. Yeah. And
okay.
So 14 points, needs one more point to reach his championship status. And so we'll hopefully pick that up in Boise.
Well, I certainly wish you well in that.
Well, thanks.
And
it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Send me an email. Let's stay in touch.
Will do.
And look forward to hopefully seeing you in February when you come through.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. All right.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Take care, Jim.
See ya.
All right. Bye.